What's up, everybody? You've tuned in to Just Draws, the podcast that explores hot topics and various experiences among same-gender loving Black men. In each episode, we offer raw, vulnerable, and stripped-down perspectives to give voice to our frequently overlooked population. Here, we don't just scratch the surface, we dive deep, peeling back the layers of our experiences as well as heteronormative stereotypes. Let's get into this week's episode.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Just Draws podcast. I'm Jeff.
And it's your boy Darius, aka DMC.
All right. Tonight, we are coming from Green Hill Zone.
What is Green Hill Zone?
Green Hill Zone is the first stage of Sonic the Hedgehog, the first game on the Genesis.
I barely played Sonic, and so the only little bit of stuff that I know about Sonic is, I played this world before, but I didn't know that was the name of it. But that just shows how much of a video game nerd you are, which is absolutely fine.
That's fine.
Yeah, it is.
It's cool.
It is.
Ding, ding, ding. All right. So tonight, continuing on in the summer, in the path that we've been on a lot on this podcast, is talking about friendships and relationships. So today we're going to talk about socializing. So finding the right social circle is very important, navigating gay spaces and just spaces as men. And so I feel like gay men have a unique challenge or unique challenges in trying to balance our sexual identity and forming bonds and dating and being platonic and all that good stuff. And so in the mix of that and just socializing in general, we have to find our different circles and we have to form these friendships and relationships and build trust. And that can be kind of complex. So we've got, social media, we've got in-person meeting and all of these different ways that we can meet another man. And then we need to kind of like define what that relationship is going to be after we meet that man. So how do we form these connections? Where do we find people to make these connections at? So that is pretty much the summary of what I want tonight's podcast to be about. We're going to try to see if we can dig deep and have a vulnerable conversation about navigating our friendships and socializing and how we can go about all of that.
Okay.
All right. So how does one find the right tribe, the right social circle? I'll say that for me, I feel like it's been trial and error. And I say that in relation to finding a real life tribe, like in-person meeting, hanging out and this, that, and the other. Like, I feel like it's a little easier to find people that you can connect with online, but trying to find, something that may be a unique subject matter that you're into, or, if that's video games, if that's car racing, if that's, Greco-Roman wrestling, it's kind of hard sometimes to find those niche areas. And that may be a good place to actually find a friendship. So for me, again, I feel like it's been trial and error, just kind of like throwing out, seeing what sticks on the wall, and just going to different events. I've tried, and you know about this, Darius, we were part of a Facebook group that was trying to form some connections and get like-minded men together.
You mean the group that I got kicked out of?
Yeah,
okay,
that
cool.
group. That was one area that we tried to form different bonds and
right.
that. So again, Facebook group could be a place, but I feel like for me, meeting people in person just kind of works a little bit better. But then, how do you get to meet that person in person? Do you first connect with them online and then take that from online to offline? So my experience has been, again, with different social groups, I've been able to kind of make that connection where, hey, you're saying something that I like on Instagram or Facebook, or TikTok, or however you meet this person or see these people online, slide into the DMs, maybe have a conversation and see how that goes. And then be like, hey, I want to move this conversation into offline. So do you want to meet up and just kind of hang out? And I think sometimes it feels like you're trying to pick someone up from the other side. And that's not really it at all. It just could just be that, hey, or it is, I would just think that you're cool. I like your points of view. I want to hang out with you. Let's do lunch. Let's get a snack. Let's get coffee. Let's get tea and just chop it up. So that's pretty much the way that I feel like this thing could work. But I want to get your opinion on how you've been able to kind of like meet people and make a transition from that online into offline communication.
So before I get into kind of the ways that I do it, let me ask you, when you're looking for those sorts of relationships, are you looking for commonalities and then you're building based on the commonalities, or are you looking at just people that might have a good vibe?
I kind of feel like it's more important for me to have more things in common with someone.
Okay.
And then I kind of feel like if I've got that, then I can figure out the vibe later. Because then what are we going to talk about? Because I've had conversations with people where I thought that the vibe was good and we just didn't really have a lot in common to talk about. And it just kind of like, okay, well, you're cool to hang out with every now and then. I don't think I'm going to be able to bring you into my inner circle, but we'll see. I mean, I don't need clones of myself to be a friend.
Okay.
But I do feel like we've got to have some type of something that we can kind of like bond over. So that's what for me, that's what I would be looking for if I'm going to meet someone new and they're going to be, a friend. I want them to be someone I can actually have a conversation with. Oh, that we're going to talk about this game. We're going to talk about this show, something like that.
For me, it's a lot more about the vibe. It's me saying, all right, I see or sense what kind of vibe that you have. And I've shared this with you, and I share this with a few people, but not every single person, because sometimes it will either scare people off or it will make people wonder exactly what I mean by that, or they start to question me about it. But one thing that I do, one of the ways in which I discern people is I see colors around them. And so when I'm looking online or I'm engaging with somebody in person, there's an aura around them. There's a colored aura around them. And that lets me know how I need to proceed. So
they got the glow.
They got the glow, like the Last Dragon. Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon. Absolutely. So and some people who have the glow per se, I know that I can approach them a certain way. There are people who have different colors that I go, okay, I can have a conversation with you, but I'm not going to proceed anymore because your aura looks a little off to me. So maybe in a future episode, I'll explain my aura colors and things of that nature. But it's always fun when I talk about that with people. They always go, oh, well, what color is this person? Or what color am I? Or what color is this person? I bet you see this color with this person. And I'm like, no, I don't see those colors. I don't see that color. I can tell you what your color is, etc. But for me, I think the element of surprise is where I flourish a little bit more. I look at the vibe, or I look at the color, or I feel the aura, etc. when I'm engaging with them in person, or if I'm engaging with them online. I'll usually just kind of put it out there. I'll shoot my shot just to see, what's going on, and not necessarily shooting my shot in terms of romantic encounters or romantic engagement, but just saying this person seems really cool. I'm looking at some of the content that they're posting and I see that they're having a good time. So let me reach out and say, hey, you know what? Nice picture. Or I've always wanted to go to this place, or I love your style, things of that nature.
Okay.
And then from there, I like to build the relationship and say, oh, cool. What things do you have in common, or what things do you like to do in your spare time? What industry do you work in? What's your family structure like? And then some of those things get to be surprises for me. And once I am able to actually hear that from them and hear the inflection, if we actually get a chance to talk on the phone, or just to see what they text back if we're exchanging messages on Messenger or if we exchange phone numbers, etc. I like that a little bit better. And so then the commonality comes a little bit later for me, because I can be friends with people that I don't have a lot of things in common with, but if I'm able to engage with them and converse with them and talk about a myriad or a variety of things, I'm good with that.
Okay. All right. So, do you feel like that's generally has worked out for you as far as making long-term friends, or even if not necessarily long-term, but what I'd say a friend that you meet and the relationship goes longer than 6 months, and it's not like a
Hmm.
little flash in the pan
Hmm.
type of, oh yeah, we met and we went out for pizza and then that was it.
In a lot of the situations, my my super long term friends, there has been some sort of common thing that has brought us together, but it's really only been a common thing as it relates to something spatial. So we're in the same class, we're in the same
Okay.
program together, we're in the same extracurricular activity, we attend the same church. So it's something that's always spatial or environmental that will bring us together. But even in those situations, there are people that I have met that, again, their auras are off, so I don't
Okay.
necessarily engage with them. But I think that it has worked for me, because even like in our friendship, when I was introduced to you via one of the other sites that we talked about
Mhm.
in one of the previous episodes, that I was engaged by your enthusiasm about some of the topics and some of the ways that you responded to some of the topics. And so having seen that and then being able to reach out to you and then get some response and get some good conversation, then from there we figured out that, okay, this is cool. And honestly, I don't know that you and I have a lot of things in common. Like, there are things that we're okay with, and there are things that
Mhm.
there's certain ways that we move similarly. But I'm not a gamer, you're a
Mhm.
gamer, you know, you're a housewife, I'm not. Like, as far as like the Real Housewives and all of that, Medicine Wives and all that other bullshit. So I'm not any of that,
Mhm.
but there are things that I like that you're like, I don't. There have even there've been times where I said, oh, you know what, I want to do this, or I want to engage with this person, and you're like, I don't. I'm good on that. So yeah, we run the gamut of
Mhm.
commonality between the both of us, but we're still best friends in the sense that we can have those conversations. So I think that works for me. But what
Yeah.
about you, though?
So I feel like the way that we met and the way that we connected and bonded, I
Hmm.
think I think my way of meeting people and forming bonds and the way that you met people and formed bonds with them
Hmm.
kind of just meshed in the way that we met.
Hmm.
And that there were just kind of things that, after we met and actually started, talking and talking on the phone, talking on the Skype or whatever, when we first met initially and just started
Hmm.
having more progressive conversations and talked about our experiences and things like that. I think that is where we kind of found the commonality between our bonding styles, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's what kind of keeps us together as friends. Where even though, yeah, we may not have every single thing in common, but I do
Right.
feel like we have a lot of similar ways that we move and how we
Right.
think about
Exactly.
things.
Yeah.
And then we do have those things that are not similar at all between
Yeah.
us,
Yeah. So I
you
think I
know.
think that's where the commonality is in our personalities, because our
Hmm.
personalities tend to be very similar. There are certain things that you will do that I'm like, I really don't give a shit about. And then there are things that I will do that you're like, okay, well, you can go ahead and go do that. I'm
Hmm.
I'm good on this. So, but I think, yeah, the ways in which we move are what help us to continue down the path of
Hmm.
friendship that we always had. But it's interesting to hear that that your go-to initially is this commonality thing. Like let's find some things in common, and then from there we go from there. So I guess maybe for us, the thing that we had in common was, again, for me, something
Yeah.
spatial. We were both on the same website, and we were both contributing to blogs, etc., or forums on that space.
Yeah, because it's kind of goes back to what I was saying on that uh, solo episode I did, where I felt like people in high school were friends with each other in high school because of proximity. They were friends by proximity because we go to the same school, we're in the same classes. This is why we're friends, because we're forced to be here. But I kind of look at that the same way that people make work friends, where, oh yeah, that's my work wife, that's my work husband, that's my work bro. Because yeah, we're here to do. We're working in the same building. We work for the same company.
We
We
eat
see
lunch
each other.
together.
We eat lunch together. Blah 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 blah. I
I
see
hate
you
my
out.
boss.
Yeah, I hate my
Fuck
boss.
that
I don't like that
bitch.
girl in that
Yeah.
department. Did you
Right.
that girl on that Zoom? She could have just sent an email. Yeah, girl. All of that little stuff. You end up, forming bonds because you're having those similar experiences. And I've just not been the type of person that, when it comes to just being in the same space, has not worked for me as far as making friends. And I've tried to do that. I tried to do, oh yeah, this is my work friend, or I met this person at this job that I used to work at, and trying to take that beyond that, even after I wasn't at that company anymore, and things just kind of like fizzled. So to me, I don't look at being in the same space or being in the same proximity as a way of making friends, because it just hasn't worked out for me. Now it has for you. So if your experience in that's been working great, who am me? who are me to judge?
Who am
Or
me is fine too.
yeah, who are me to say that, oh well, that doesn't work at all, because that's just not been my experience. So I can't say that it doesn't work at all. I can say that it hasn't worked for me. And that's not. I'm at the point where I don't feel like I have to really worry about that, especially like working from home, that I really don't have that expectation that, oh, I'm going to meet people that work at the same company that I work for, and we're just going to be, oh, cool, let's be buddies. I just don't see that happening.
So how do you feel like you've built trust, though, with those people that you call your friends, and especially maybe putting that in more of a global context or broader context? How can gay Black men kind of build that trust amongst friends without it being something that there's some sort of ulterior motive? Or how do you feel that? I should say that.
I feel like it really goes down. It comes to where you have to experience some type of bonding action, or bonding event. And that could come from you being vulnerable and sharing something that you feel like, hey, I got this situation going on. I don't really trust you 100%, but I'm going to give you a little bit of this and see how you react to it. See what type of vibe that I get from you from after I tell you this. Are you going to be judgmental about this? Or are you going to actually offer me good advice? And then if I can share this with you and it doesn't get outside of this room, and I don't hear about it from someone else, that Jeff said this, Jeff said that, Jeff told me this about his personal business, then I feel like I'll be able to share more with you. And I think at least for me, I am not the most trusting when it comes to some things, because I always think that people have some type of ulterior motive behind things. And, rarely will I feel like I get the instant friend or instant bond where I feel like, oh, I can share this personal detail about myself until we've actually experienced something together. So that could be, we hang out for a couple of times, uh, you know, just as bros, this as another, and just having just regular conversation with someone. But I feel like you have to form trust, because a lot of times, people in our circle, or as far as Black gay men go, it can get to a point where you don't know if you can really trust people, because you don't know, is what I'm telling this person going to get back out here? Is it going to just leave here and I hear this rumor about me, or they take something that I said and use it against me later on, and I feel like because that's happened to so many people before, that it's hard for people to kind of let go some of those layers and be like, okay, this person is really genuine and they're not out to get me. They really want to be my friend. And it's just a hard thing to do unless you actually, for me, unless I'm spending time with someone and we get to know each other and we're having different conversations. Um, for example, there's like this uh, game. Well, it's not really a game, but it's like a series of questions that you can ask people. I think one of them is, we're not really strangers.
Yeah, I've played that before. I've done that in another
Right.
group that I was a part of. Yeah.
Yeah. So, going through that box of questions and just kind of like, hey, getting asked things that you have to actually sit down and think about your answer, and then sharing that with the room of other people that you may or may not know, can cause a lot of thought and discussion. And, you can see how people's thought processes are by going through that box of questions. And I think that's a good activity for people to try to do. But, everyone's not at a point where they feel like they can do that like initially. Like, I wouldn't say that people should do that on their first date or the first time they meet someone. But I do feel like if you think that this person is going to be a good friend for you in the future, or has that potential to be, I think that's a good way to actually get to know people, is to go through those types of questions. And we're not really strangers, and there's other
Yeah, I use the
conversation
and.
starters.
Yeah, if you've not heard of that one, some product placement here. We're not strangers, definitely, if you want to
Yeah.
sponsor us. And the and, if you want to sponsor us. The and has a bunch of different decks. They have decks for singles, people who might be dating. They have decks
Hmm.
for people who have been together for a while. They have like personal decks, so like you can kind of do that sort of thing with yourself. And
Hmm.
the and has some videos on YouTube, if you haven't seen those, where they're usually two people sitting in front of each other and they pull questions out and they're asking questions about each other, or asking like it might be a family member, two family members, or it could be people who have been together and things of that nature. So it
Yeah.
really kind of gets deep into that. So I really enjoy questions like that. I've actually played the and deck with my family, and it got interesting. It definitely got interesting. So I can see how that would be a good trust building sort of activity
Yeah.
for people. Yeah.
Yeah. Then another plug is table topics. It's similar type of situation where you just kind of like pull out a question amongst the group, and they have different style of questions. They have them for kids, they have them for a room of people that may be, young adults, or young children, up to like older adults, and just different types of questions that, people can ask each other. So definitely
Hmm.
think that those good conversation starter type of things are good ways to kind of see and test the waters before we actually divulge something that's really personal.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
Yeah. And I definitely feel like forming trust is just really key when it comes to Black gay men. It's just hard to do sometimes, because you just can't trust everybody, at least not initially.
Have you had any situations where that's come back to bite you?
um I can't say that I have, because I don't have, not me personally, I'll put it like that. I've heard of people, or read online where people said, I told my friend this, or I told this guy this, and then next thing I know, my business is all out on the street. And I guess because when people form bonds with me, I end up being the bone collector. So once, it gets to me, and people feel like they can confide in me with stuff, I just don't repeat it. It's kind of like,
Right.
all right, well, I know this. And then I may end up being the one, well, you remember when I told you about XYZ? Well, here's the update. So don't tell
Hmm.
nobody. This and another type of thing. So I'm okay with holding the things. It doesn't like bother me if people feel like that I'm that person to be the sounding board to, give all the details to, because I love to hear it. It's entertaining,
Because you're a
or it can
housewife.
be. Yeah, I'm a housewife. You're a drag
Hmm.
queen. It's
I
okay.
am. I am.
But I don't mind being the charade of the group. That's perfectly fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So when we talk about, for example, I was just talking about, social media and things like that, or at least social networks. Do you feel like social media today, is that an important way to form friendships, or I'm sorry, an important way to kind of like discover who a person is before you actually make that first step to initialize communication? Because sometimes with social media, people put out the best of this, the best shot, the best video, the best content, the best editing, and all of that. And so you get kind of like this packaged version of someone. And sometimes that's not necessarily genuine. And so, it could be, I feel like me personally, that, just kind of seeing all your good stuff that you put online isn't always like the best representation of a person, because I don't expect people to put like all of their falls and failures on social media. Sometimes people put things up just for the attention,
For shock value.
the shock value. They just want attention. It could be like, oh, I can't believe that this has happened to me, period. And they post that on like Facebook or Twitter. And then, oh no, what happened to you? Oh, I'm so sorry. And they get all of these sympathy replies back to them because they're just kind of like getting that attention. They like to see the little button come up in the notification say, hey, so-and-so has responded to you. Hey, so-and-so, reposted what you had to say. I feel like it's good and bad with that. Because I also feel like, in a way, if someone, for example, friends me on Facebook and they actually go through and read some of the things that I posted in some groups, and they actually respond to me and say, hey, I saw what you said in this group. Totally get that, this and the other. That's fine. If someone friends me, I accept the request. And 1 second after that, hey, how are you? And they're not really engaging with me. I don't actually like that, because then I feel like they're only dealing with the packaged version of myself, instead of going back and reading anything that I posted and getting any type of, what I want to say.
So you don't think that that's like a point of entry, though? Even the hey, how are you, and just kind of starting with that. Are you saying that they should
I
kind of start in, other than the hey, that they should start in with, hey, I really liked this, or I really agree with, etc.?
I feel like that would get me more engaged with them than
Okay.
versus them just sending me just some random hey. Because all I'm going to say is hey back.
Okay.
And if you don't have anything else, kind of like, I'm going to give you the same effort that I feel like you put in to me back to you. So
Hmm.
if you give me hey, I'm going to give you hey. If you're going to give me HRU, I'm going to say fine, HRU. I'm not going to even bother typing out the how are you, because I feel like you're not going to find, you're not taking the time to kind of really see what I've already presented to you. You're going to ask me basic questions that you probably could have gotten from just the content that I put out, the message that I've sent, you know? And it's not that it's not a person, it's not that it's not a point of entry. It's just
Hmm.
that I feel like it's kind of like lazy, and I'm just going to be like lazy back.
Okay. See, for me, it's a point of entry. So even if they're coming at me with the hey, how are you? What's going on? How was your day kind of thing? I'm fine with that, because
Mhm.
that's showing some initial interest. Now, I'm not putting a lot of stock in it initially. I'm going to see how consistent and frequent that
Okay.
communication is, and then I will divulge a little bit more. One of the things that I actually do hate sometimes, as it relates to social media and people that I'm meeting on social media, I really do hate the question of tell me about yourself
Oh, Lord.
or tell me about you. So the issue with
What's up
that
with you?
is, right, that bullshit. So there's so many things that I could go into about myself, but then I don't want to be the asshole that asks the question back, well, what do you want to know, kind of thing.
Mhm.
So there's a stock answer that I have now, or that I've developed now, so that I don't have to ask that question anymore. But the issue with that is there's so much about me that it's like, okay, are you looking for something specific, or are you looking just for more general intel about me? So sometimes in the past when I have asked that, you know, what do what would you like to know? I always get the message back, well, whatever you want to tell me. So I'm like, okay, so now we're doing this sort of dance. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to say these things, and this is what it's going to be. And then I may ask, okay, well, what about you? And then from there, we can kind of go. But again, I don't have a problem with those initial pleasantries, just to start to build the levels of communication. Because if you can't even do those for me, then it's not going to work out anyway. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I don't want a big, college answer to those, to just when you talk to me or initially hit my DMs. I don't want you to sit up here and give me, yes, I like the fact that you said this, that, and the other, and blah, 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 blah. It doesn't have to be necessarily long, but I feel like I need to get some type of, what I want to say, feeling that you're actually interested in things that I posted, other than saying that or thinking that, oh, you just slid in my DMs because you think I'm cute or you want to have sex with me or whatever. I kind of feel like, there's enough things that I've put out there that just you can kind of use that as a breadcrumb into my social circle or whatever, or into my life.
Okay.
Where it doesn't have to be like a big deal, but it could be like, it's clear that, oh, I like video games. You can ask me about that. It may be I have a opinion on something political. It could be just something really small. It doesn't have to be no big dissertation or anything. Just something that we can actually get the conversation kind of like started and go back and forth. And you said something very important, which is consistency, which is something that everyone talks about, like, oh, he's not consistent. They're not consistent, this and the other. But yeah, you do have to keep that up where,
And
okay, well,
consistency is negotiated between the people who are involved in whatever ship that is. So it could be relationship, it could be companionship, it could be acquaintanceship, it could be relationship. So that's the other thing that people don't necessarily get, that consistency again is negotiated. So if you and I speak every other day, that's consistent for me and you. If we only speak weekly, that might be consistent enough for us. But like you and I have even said, within our friendship, that if we go a week without speaking to each other or without engaging with each other or reaching out to each other, one of us will do that. It's like, I haven't talked to you all week, so I need to, what's going on? What's up? You okay? But that's us. And we've built that trust. We've built that rapport with each other. But even in new relationships, and especially gay relationships, like you said, that word is thrown around a lot, but I don't think people understand the association with it and how it needs to function in whatever it is that you're in with that person.
Yeah, how it would be relative to that relationship between the two people.
Yeah, right.
Because like what you said, like if you and I are going to, at minimum, we will text each other at least within a 2 or 3 day period. We're not going to go without a text message at the simplest form of communication. We're going to talk at least once a week. We haven't, because once we started noticing how our communication cadence runs, it was like, oh yeah, I hadn't talked to him in like 6 days. Let me call him and see what's going on.
It never gets to 6 days. Most, I think, between us, it might be 3, and then it's like, okay, I need to say something.
Yeah, I feel like we are way better about it now because we're more aware of it. But I do think that there was a time when I think we did kind of go for like a couple of days, like more than 4 days, where we did not have any type of communication. It's kind of like, let's see what's going on. So yeah, since we kind of had those conversations before about this, I think that we've gotten a lot better. So now it is definitely like, if we haven't talked in 3 or 4 days, then something's going on. And since we've been doing this podcast, obviously we've communicated a lot more frequently than we did before.
Right.
But that brings me to my next little talking point here, which is we don't live in the same city.
Right.
And we were just together a week ago, matter of fact. And so, I have a set of friends here in Atlanta that I talk to frequently. And since I've moved out of core Atlanta and now 20 or so miles outside of the perimeter or outside of core Atlanta, I don't have access to those friends like I used to. It used to be that I could just get a call or call, one of my friends, be like, hey, what you doing at 1? And we could go out and meet somewhere to grab lunch in the middle of the day. I don't really have the ability to do that anymore because it's a commute for me to get into the city now. Like, it's one thing to be, oh, I'm 15 minutes from the restaurant or 20 minutes from your house versus, yeah, it's going to take me like 45 minutes to get to where you are. It's just not feasible for me to do that because now it's going to be 45 minutes to an hour for me to get back home after we've eaten. So in that case, with these groups of friends or these particular friends, now I have to kind of like arrange and schedule time. Like, hey, what's she doing Friday? I have to like put things on my calendar to make sure that I don't end up falling out of our now consistent pattern, so that we can still make sure that we see each other and spend time together and chit chat and judging and all that good stuff. So while it's not exactly the same as it was before, we've got a little bit of a watered down version of how we hang out now. Because it used to be like, oh, I could go and hang out at his house for a minute late at night and it wouldn't be anything because I was only like, 10 minutes from my house. Versus now, now I'm 30 minutes, it's kind of like in a commute. It's like, now I got to drive 25 miles, back home if I go hang out at his place. And it's just not as convenient, I guess. But, we still go through the process. Like I said, putting something on the calendar because now we're actually going to brunch on Sunday, just because we haven't hung out in about 2 weeks. Because last week, I was out with you, and so we just hadn't had time to like hang out like that. So I'm looking forward to us going out to eat. I love them. It's just that I just don't have that access like I used to. But it kind of goes back to what I was saying before. Making that regular cadence and making that communication is very important. So if we're going to be consistent in this way until I either move closer to the city or they move out, closer to me in this way, I think that's just going to be how our dynamic is just going to work going forward.
Okay. Do either of you have plans to make those sorts of moves, or do you've created a cadence with them, so that like you're going to brunch, like you said this weekend, is that something that you all are going to keep doing moving forward, where like, okay, listen, we're not going to be able to get up as much as we used to, but we can every week or every something, we're going to hang out, we're going to make that our day? Have you thought about that?
Not necessarily, because I feel like we do hang out. We just don't. It's not like it has to be planned now. It's not as spontaneous as it used to be. And so
Why
I
is
feel
that?
like
Just because of the distance?
just because of the distance, like
Okay.
it's not because it's now it's at the point where, like I said, if we're Atlanta traffic is so bad and it's just better to just kind of like put something on the calendar and schedule it versus to get called like at 8:23 at night and like, hey, let's go get pizza. It's not, I can't do that. Well, I take it back. I can, but it's not like I'm going to get there in 15 minutes like I used to. It's going to be like, oh, well, I got to get all the way out of my neighborhood. Then I got to get on the interstate. Then I got to get off the interstate, navigate through the city, find parking. It's now more of a whole event where before it just kind of be like, oh, I can do that. No problem. Don't even have to think about it. I can just get in the car, get up, go. So it's not even necessarily, doesn't have to be brunch. It doesn't have to be anything, dinner related. It's just that now it has to be something that has to be aligned on the calendar instead of that instant access or, virtually instant, spontaneous type of thing.
Okay.
And I think
And
it's
that makes
important.
sense.
Yeah. And I think it's important that people, once you kind of realize that that's the dynamic of how this is working, and it's only because I've moved or they've moved too, you just kind of work with what you got. And it's the same thing with relationships. Like, people in the city, as I mentioned before, have a problem dating people that aren't within that 8 mile grinder jacked radius, because they feel
Right.
like, oh, well, it's so hard for me to kind of spend time with you. It's not impossible. It's just
No.
that you have to put in more effort and work to make those things, those connections happen.
And people don't want to do that.
And people don't want to do that. But you have to do those same things, even if it's your friends. Like, we make the time to spend together when we can. Now I have to make time to spend with these friends that are in the same metro area as me.
Right.
It just has to be put on the schedule and the calendar so I can make sure that I don't forget and that we still get to spend our time together.
Right.
All
Understood.
right. So I know you don't have a problem, say, with meeting people to date that are outside of your immediate geographical area. How do you feel
Correct.
about that when it comes to just friendship?
I don't have a problem with that either. Again, it's the idea of you have to put that work in. And if you're not willing to put the work in to make a friendship or a relationship or an acquaintanceship or a companionship work, then that's fine. I would like to know that on the front end so that I'm not spinning my wheels. And that's a term that I like to use a lot in anything. It's like, okay, look, if I'm the one that's continuing to reach out, if I'm the one that's continuing to engage, am I spinning my wheels just doing that? And there are people in my life right now who do that for me. They actually reach out to me, a lot more than I get a chance to reach out to them. And sometimes it's just a situation of I'm caught up doing things earlier in the day and they just happen to get to me before I can actually get to them. So if any of those people are listening that always reach out to me, just know that it's appreciated. But yeah, sometimes it's just a situation of, okay,
You
when
got
I
caught
wake up
up.
in the morning, I got caught up in the morning. I'm not thinking about texting people or reaching out to people. I usually don't reach out to people before 9 or 10 o'clock because
Same.
there are people who sleep in, they have other things going on, but I will reach back. I always reach back. So I try to make sure that stuff is always there. So definitely, again, for people who are listening, who reach out to me more than I reach out to them, thank you. I appreciate you. I love you for that. And just know that it's not in vain. Charge it to my head, not my heart. But having said that as well, I don't have that problem. I don't have that problem with having friends in other places, because what that does is it helps me when I travel to those places already have a base or a band of brothers or fuck buddies or whatever I want to have in those cities, to say, okay, hey, I already know somebody that's here. And so I can at least reach out to them and say, hey, I'm coming in town. Let's go grab food. Or I'm coming into town. Let me come and be food for you, et cetera, et cetera. So it helps me with that. And I don't think that other people see that. I think that people are very proximal and they want to only deal with people that are right in their immediate vicinity, and anybody that is not in their immediate vicinity is off limits. And that I don't need a pen pal. I get that a lot. I don't need pen pals, but it's like, there's nothing wrong with that, because if you travel, you may be in that person's area and they may be able to show you a good time, or they may be able to help you get through whatever it is. Maybe if you're there for work and you have some downtime, they can come in and do some of those things. So I don't have a problem with that. But what about you? Do you have issues with that?
I mean, and I get what you're saying. I just don't feel, for me, that I feel like those the time that I would spend investing and trying to get to know those people would be better off spent spending that time to get to know people that I either already know or people that are more accessible geographically close to me.
Hmm.
But what you said makes complete sense. I totally get it. You're planning to go to, I don't know, Palm Springs, California,
Boise, Idaho. Let's go.
that, whatever, Nutcrack, Mississippi, whatever.
Nutbush.
You're going to go ahead and try to like put some feelers out and see, hey, this person is in there, and kind of like plan and be like, hey, I'm coming to this town, I'm coming to the city, this and the other. See you on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, whatever, Instagram, and try to put your feelers out there to kind of be like, once you land, hey, I'm in town, want to hang out, take me to the spot, this and the other, and let's kind of chill and hang out. Whereas I'm perfectly fine going to a city where I don't know anyone there and just kind of like doing my own thing and just kind of like, oh, I see this. Let me go do whatever this is. Oh, I see that. Let me go do whatever that is. I don't have to have a landing spot. Once I get to a city, I can just kind of like hit the ground running and just kind of do what I want to do. And if I meet
And I think
people,
for me too, that idea or that notion of being able to connect with people prior to me getting to a city really comes from my fraternity background too,
mm,
because in my fraternity, I met people from different areas, different states, different regions, etc. And so when you get to know those people, it helps you when you're in their spaces, because you're like, you know what, I can always reach out to somebody, or, oh, I know this brother is from here, or I know
mm,
this Sarah lives here, so let me reach out to them as well. So that helps me. But I get what you're saying about you kind of wanting to kind of be and explore on your own necessarily. For me, when I'm when I want to be by myself, I want to be by myself.
yeah,
So when I want to explore, I would like to explore with somebody who is a local to the area. But it doesn't have to be that, but it does help a lot of times for me.
yeah. Because when I go somewhere, if I'm traveling by myself, once I get to town and I'm doing whatever activity that I'm trying to do while I'm there, I'll just kind of socialize with the people that are there. I don't necessarily
Hmm.
have to feel like, oh, let's exchange numbers, and after this, we may be friends, and that's possible. I just kind of would rather hit the ground running once I get to the city. I mean, because that happened to
Hmm.
me when I went out of the country last year and ended up running into someone that was from Atlanta too. I'm like, oh, cool. We
Hmm.
did exchange numbers, didn't really go anywhere, friendship wise, but hey, it was cool to meet someone from the same city when I wasn't expecting that at all, you know.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, I'd rather kind of like be more exploratory and just kind of like do things on my own, be more nomadic and trailblazer, I guess is a better word to say. It's kind of like, oh, let me go navigate this on my own space. It's cool to know that there's someone there, but yeah, I can deal with this city on my own. I don't need your
I
help.
actually just got a message today from somebody who's coming into town towards the end of the month that reached out to me and literally just sent me their itinerary. And I
Mm.
was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll try to make my way, to come and check you out. So,
Now, see, that's the way to do it. So, because at least they've given you an itinerary of what they're going to be doing versus someone sliding into your DMs and be like, hey, I'm going to be in your town on Thursday or Friday. Today's
no, 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 no,
Thursday.
no. Let
And the
me.
next thing you
That's
know,
that's what it was. No, no, no. Let me put it out there. Let me make that
okay,
clear that that's what it was. It was literally just the dates that they were going to be in town and the
mhm,
hotel where they were staying. That was what it
okay,
was. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I had to interpret and say, oh, okay, dope. You're going to be here. So yes, I will make an attempt to come and check you out. And so they actually asked me, this is going to be around Halloween when
okay.
they'll be here, and they asked if there were any parties, and I was like, I have no idea. So
But
I
see,
asked somebody about it, but I don't know.
it's still a couple of weeks away from Halloween, though. So you've
Hmm.
actually got time to actually plan something out versus people that will do that and you don't find out until like the day of, like, oh, I'm in town, and then you'd be like, all right, cool, we'll have fun.
What
You
happened?
haven't given they
Right.
haven't given you enough time to kind of like plan something out. You've got time to like plan. You got a runway now, where if you do
Hmm.
want to do something with this person, like you can be like, hey, there's this spot I've been wanting to check out for food, this and the other. Would you be interested in doing this too while you're here? Or is there
Right.
a place that you're interested in doing while you're here? Maybe we can meet up, this and the other, versus people that will be like, oh, hey, I'm in town, today and tomorrow. And then they're like, you tell them, well, hey, I got plans. I can't just drop everything just because you're now in town. At least they've given you warning that, hey, I'm here. You can try to actually spend time with this person now versus it just being like a surprise, I'm here. And then they get mad at you because you're like, well, I got other shit to be doing. I got, things that I've already committed to. If you had told me when you had booked the flight, then I could have been like, okay, well, I've got a window here and I got a window here. Do you have a window that overlaps, or where you're going to be? Let me see if there's a way that I can get off work early or shift some things around so that I can actually try to spend time with you or meet you or see you, since you're here. And it's probably unlikely that I'm going to make it to your town or your city anytime soon, or I just left there, so I'm not going back anytime soon. There's a way of doing that makes
Yeah.
sense. And there's a way to do it where it just doesn't make any sense at all. I feel like in this situation, you kind of got it the best, or one of the best
Yeah.
ways to kind of
No, and
do
it
it.
was it was definitely that. So it was
Yeah.
like, okay, well that's cool. I appreciate you letting me know. I can't say that I've always been that courteous too. Sometimes I'll pop in a city and realize, oh, you know what? So and so is here. Or
Hmm.
you know what, so and so is here. And so I'll reach out kind of quickly. But I'm not expecting for that person to be able to hang out. It's
Yeah.
usually like, okay, if you can or if you're free, let's get up. If not, then it is what it is. But there have been some times where I've reached out and told some people I wanted to hang out with them, and then it just didn't work out.
Hmm.
And they got a little upset with me, which I get. And I'm like, hey, listen, you have every right to be upset with me. It just didn't work out. I was all over the place, and that was my bad. So, but I definitely understand that, and I've been on both sides of that. So,
Yeah. I mean, even this summer, I was out of town, and someone was like, hey, I'm going to be at the same event or in the town for an event that I wasn't going to. And was like, all right, cool. Well, I guess I'll see you at the party. And the person never did show up at the party. It was like, oh, okay, well, cool. You just weren't there. You just weren't there. But at least, there was, hey, there's a possibility this person's going to be there. I know them already. We don't live in the same town. So it'll be cool to see you again. But, no sweat off my back if we don't see each other. Excuse me.
do you feel like when you go to a city and you're doing this exploratory stuff, do you feel it's important to have events to go to, or even to maybe check out nightlife when you go?
So when I go out of town and it's a trip that I plan,
Hmm.
usually I already got, an idea of what I'm going to do. It's going to be
Okay.
sketched out. Like, I'm definitely going to do this event. I'm definitely going to go to this place to eat.
Hmm.
Definitely going to go to this museum. And I leave my schedule open so that if something suddenly comes up that I may find interesting, I can then do that.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily have to check out nightlife. That's cool. But I never feel like too pressured to do it. Now, when I went to Mexico, I did check out the nightlife because I was on vacation and I wanted to, get as much of the city and the experience that I could.
Hmm.
And so in that case, then yeah, I did check out the nightlife. And then I was only like, there were bars within a stone's throw of where I was staying at. So it was like, couldn't help but go out. It would be like a loss to not, at least see what things were, see what was going on in the club scene and this and other in nightlife. Um, yeah, but I normally don't make it such that going to the club is going to be the main focus of my trip.
Hmm.
But, go out somewhere and just kind of like people watch, then yeah, I would like to do that. So, I'll go to the spot or one of the more popular spots just to kind of like hang out and see where the people are. Cause I want to be somewhere where I can be comfortable with my sexuality if I go anywhere. So I'm going to go to where the gay people are going to be at. So it doesn't even have to be a club. It could just be, the beach or the park or this, that, and the other, or, just like any other type of social gathering, like for me. What about you? Like, I know you normally try to meet up with people, and nightlife tends to not necessarily be your thing, but I know you will go out to a club. You're not closing the club at 2:30 a.m.
So I don't give a fuck about the nightlife. So let's just, I don't. When I go somewhere, if I'm going with people, I will indulge in the nightlife sort of situation. I'm not that guy that has to be out with a bunch of people.
Mm.
I'm more of I tell people all the time, I'm more of an exclusive type of dude versus an inclusive type of dude. So I don't have to be where all of the people are. I've been where all of the people are. And as we talked about in a previous podcast, it's the same person. It's the same group of people that we're seeing out somewhere. So I'm like, I don't necessarily need to see the same person or the same people that I've always seen everywhere else that I go, just with possibly a different face. So I don't necessarily care about that, but exclusivity is better for me. I like very small gatherings. I like, house party-esque sort of things. So I have a friend here who always invites me to things that he has at his house, whether it's a housewarming or just a gathering. And so I've had the opportunity to meet some people. Yeah, kickbacks. I've had the opportunity to meet some cool people at his place, but even there, it feels a little weird because there are people that I know there. There are people who I've met at previous gatherings, but it's still sort of clicked up when I go. So like there are people who know each other and they haven't seen each other in a while. So I'm kind of a third, fourth, fifth, sixth wheel there because they're engaging with each other. But yeah, I'd rather do that. I'd rather do very small gatherings. Even, something with 10 people or less is great for me because then I can engage with other people. Sometimes more than that, there's too many auras in the room and it causes it's too many colors in the room. And I know that we're a part of the rainbow community, but I don't like to see all of those colors, in one spot. I'm sorry, I don't. So that's a little different, but I am grateful, when people do invite me to those little small gatherings like that, because then it gives me an opportunity to say, okay, hey, I can really be myself, or I can really get to know people. I can spend some time with people and say, okay, this is this person, this is this person, this is this person. And I'm big on like names and faces. So I'm like, okay, hey, I know you, or I remember you at this event and your name is, etc. So I'm very relational like that. But I know a lot of people aren't though.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people want to be on the scene and see everything. I definitely am a fan of a kickback. I'd rather it be a smaller gathering of people. And I feel like you have better conversations in situations like that. Is you get to know people a lot better. Because I feel like being in a club, it's cool to go to a club if you're, if your expectation is to just kind of hang out, have a cocktail, people watch for a little bit, and then go about your day. But meeting people in the club, to me, I always have it in the back of my mind that people are on the prowl. They want to try to, meet somebody to hook up with later, this, that, and the other,
and
same
that's
night.
Fine.
And that's perfectly fine with that. But it's hard. I feel like because people have that as the agenda, that getting to know a person in that situation is different from getting to know a person at a kickback at someone's house or a smaller event. Because usually people don't have that front of mind thinking that, oh, I'm going to give me a number out of this event and go take somebody home or go to somebody's house. And you can definitely do that at the kickback. But I feel like because the energy is just a little bit different and it doesn't feel like everyone's on the prowl at those types of events, because most of the time in a kickback, 2 or 3 people know other people, and then everybody knows the host of the kickback. So in that situation, people are spending more time talking about things that they had in common, or the friends that they have in common, or events and experiences that they've had with the host or people that are already at the event, versus everybody at the club is just a stranger that's just kind of like dumped into this big mixing bowl of different ingredients to try to make something out of it at the end of the
Yeah, and
night.
everybody's standing on the wall looking at everybody else and
Yep, showing off their outfits
showing
and
off their mesh tops and their thigh-high shorts
mm-hmm,
and their
mm-hmm.
crossbody bags.
That's right. Got to have the
Yeah.
cross body bag. But yeah, I feel like those types of environments they're different, and it's just easier for me and my personality to get to know someone better at a house party slash kickback versus trying to be in the club and the music and the smoke and the fighting and the drinking and all that good stuff. It just kind of, it's a lot of noise. And so I don't have high expectations going to a club thinking that, oh, I'm going to come out here meeting someone and getting to know them. I'll put it like that, getting to know them. I'm not going to say meeting someone because you meet people anywhere. But yeah, that for me would also be one of the things that we have in common is that, yeah, I'm here for the kickback. I can go to the club. It's cool. It's fine. Have no problem with that. I just don't want to be there all night.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
don't want to
and
be there when it's sardines in the club. Like once it gets to be wall to wall, I can't go to the bathroom without having to have my hand up in here to move in between people because, that's just a lot. That's a lot.
yeah, that is. And I'm definitely not that dude. I'm usually like, okay, yeah, we can be here for an hour and we can roll out. And I am watching the clock normally the
Right.
entire time. So I'm ready to roll. I do not want to be looking at a bunch of people. So
Right.
you ever feel lonely as
I
far
don't.
as, with friendship and socializing?
I don't. I don't. I felt there was a time when I did, but
Hmm.
now I do not. And I'll say because I feel like loneliness is a very big feeling and emotion that gay men have because
Hmm.
there's a lot of isolation, especially if you're still in the closet. You just kind of can feel as you just feel isolated. And if you're in a small town like I used to be in, and you don't really have a lot of, you know, other people that are gay that you can just kind of meet on a whim. Like I can go outside right now, throw a stone and meet a gay person versus being somewhere else where a small rural area, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, and I may be the only gay person there, or I may be one of only four, and I already know them, and two of them I've already had sex with. You know, um, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier when you have to define, which group you're going to put this man in. Is he going to be platonic? Is he going to be a romantic partner or a sexual partner? Because, you don't really have the luxury of choice in those situations. So if you're looking for friendships, you may not have the opportunity to have another gay friend. You may have to be forced to only deal with straight guys, remain in the closet, and then deal with that loneliness of just because you're in that environment. And I get it. If you're listening to this podcast or watching this podcast and you're in a small town, you may not be able to move to a big city. And that's just it, the way it is. It could be just you just can't relocate. You can't afford to. You may not be able to get a job that pays as well. All kinds of reasons why you can't go from a rural area into a more metropolitan area, but it's just a lot easier to be lonely in those environments because what happens is when you're in an environment like that, like I said, people are going to be more driven by their desires, I feel, and you'll meet a gay guy and you'll not really kind of consider their friendship being a thing because you probably want to just get your rocks off. And in that case, you're going to end up dealing with those guys that are more on the DL and they got the wife and, the kids and all of that, but they also mess around with dudes because they don't have any other option. So I feel like that isolation and being the only person around can be deafening.
Okay.
But, my time of being lonely was when I didn't have a lot of friends. And once I moved to a larger metropolitan area, I was able to work on that. And now I've got a pretty decent friend circle for me and got about what I can handle, and have high quality friendships out of that. And I still am collecting people and getting to know them, and they may not necessarily get to the closeness that I have with you and the closeness that I have with
And
my
they're
other two
not.
friends that obviously not,
They're
but
not. And they're not.
they'll still be close friends, at least potentially close friends. I'll say it like that. So, but yeah, moving definitely was the big deal for me because it expanded my social circle. It expanded and made my life fuller by having these people in my life now that were not a possibility or an option when I lived in a small town. So I would say it would behoove you if you don't have anything holding you back, you don't have any kids or anything like that. Even if you have a parent that may be there, it's okay to pack up your shit and move to a larger town. You will see the difference that your life will just expand. And I mean, if you're going from a city that's only got like 100,000 people to one that's got like millions, the difference in the quality of life is just so much better. You get so many more options, and yeah, it's really hard to kind of explain or just put it into a little 2-minute soundbite because of how much better life could be.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Very good public service announcement there for
indeed.
all the people who live in small towns.
Indeed. But what about you? What has your experience with loneliness been?
So
Have you had any experience with it?
yeah, it's interesting because I have been lonely and I can be vulnerable and say that. And I've always lived in a pretty metropolitan area or pretty metropolitan city. And I think that loneliness comes from the fact that I am a little bit more by nature I'm introverted, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
introverted, but I know how to operate in more extroverted spaces. And so for me,
Right.
I have to I have to work at it a little bit. And so what has happened in the past for me is I've either been on the extreme of having too many people around all the time or not having anybody around. There's really never been a middle ground. And so that's what I'm kind of working towards, and I've been working at, is trying to find a middle ground there. Like there was maybe one period in my life where I had a couple of people who were constantly around. So we go back to that idea of consistency.
Mm-hmm.
They were consistently and constantly around. And so I enjoyed that because there was no pretense. There was no we've got to have an agenda when we're hanging out. It was things like, okay, let's go to the mall. Or, hey, have you eaten yet? Let's go get some food, and I've even joked with you that I said, if I lived in Atlanta, it would be that, I'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what'd you have for, what are we doing for dinner kind of thing. But I don't necessarily have that in a lot of the places where I am. There are people that I can definitely hang out with, but everybody is busy, and
Mm-hmm.
so they they have so much going on, which I do too, but I know how to make time and space to be able to balance all that I have going on with just kind of chilling out. And I think that there are people who
Yeah.
either don't know how to do that or they say that they are too busy to do some of those things. But again, it's about work. So again, I've had instances where it's always been somebody around, or there have always been people at my house, and that bothered the shit out of me. And then there are times where like I come home and I'm like, okay, I don't have any work to do,
Mm-hmm.
anything pressing right now. I can actually kind of chill out a little bit. It would be nice if I had somebody to say, hey, what are you up to? Hey, nothing. Come on over, grab some food and come on over and let's just sit around and catch up.
Yeah.
So I have experienced that a little bit. And it doesn't last long for me. It doesn't. It's not, these long bouts or these long stints of loneliness for me. It's just like, okay, I'm lonely in the moment, but then, I'm okay
Yeah.
after that. And phone conversations, because I don't really have a lot of like friends, people that I'm super close with here where I am now or where I was prior to now, when I was in South Florida.
Hmm.
But I had people that I definitely kicked it with and that were cool. And then some of my friends from South Florida now are people that I reach out to like while I'm here. And so the phone has become a good friend for me. I can
Hmm.
reach out to people and say, hey, let me call this person or let me call that person. And that kind of fills my tank, my loneliness tank, sometimes. So when I start to run on E there, I can just kind of reach out and get that taken care of.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what you said is very important because it is all about balance and managing your time.
Hmm.
Because, for example, like I said before, I have to now schedule time with friends that I didn't have to do that with. I could just up on a whim, just be like, oh, yeah, let's go do this or let's go meet at the movies or this and another. Or now I have to put everything and put a lot of thought into it. So that's just, again, I'm in the same metro area. So can you imagine what it would be like if I had completely moved away and then had to manage my friendship with you, manage my friendship with my other friends that live here that are close? It would be a lot. And, people say that they're busy, and I get that too. We all got shit going on.
Hmm.
And then you can add in, say, like for now, now that I'm dating and got a whole boyfriend, I have to balance that time with that too. And, I'm not going to be one of those guys that people talk about saying that, oh, Justin got booed up and now he don't have time to spend with me or, us. Our friendship isn't the same way that it used to be. And I only hear from Jeff when something wrong with his dude. And then he's just Mr. Chatterbox the whole time. And then, oh, well, I ain't heard from Jeff in like 3 weeks. So I guess everything must be good at home again. I don't want to be that guy. And we all know someone that has that either been that guy or know someone who has been that guy.
Hmm.
And so I'm being intentional with how I spend my time and how I balance things to make sure that, yes, I have time to spend with my dude. Yes, I've got time to talk to my best friend. Yes, I've got time to talk to my other platonic friends that are in the area as well. And, it's doable. It just means that you're going to have to say no to some things and yes to other things. And, it's okay. You don't have to be at every event. You don't have to be at every, you know, restaurant opening and this, that, and the other. It's just unrealistic to expect yourself to be able to be everything for everyone. But at the same time,
Hmm.
you don't want to lose yourself either because you got to make some time to be alone. Um,
Hmm.
and I say that because, I love divorce court. And so Lynn Toller, being my favorite divorce court judge, she said something basically to the effect that when you are with someone, you've got to make sure that you've got time by yourself, time with your partner, husband, spouse, and time with your friends. And there may be a time where you're with your spouse and their friends and your friends at the same time.
Hmm.
And out of that, pie chart, is where you'll find your balance. It doesn't have to be, and it shouldn't be expected to be that you're going to spend equal amount of time within that pie chart. But, everybody needs to have a little bit of time where they feel like they're getting that piece of you because, like you said, you want people want to love on you. People want to love on us. And so you
Hmm.
have to let people have that times where they can feel like, hey, let me love you. Let's love on each other. Let's fellowship, drink, eat,
Hmm.
be merry. And you can do it all, but you're not going to be able to do it all. You know what I
Yeah, yeah,
mean? And that's
yeah.
where
Right.
the balancing of everything comes. You can have it all. You're just not going to be able to do it all.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Very
All
true.
right. So I think that's a good stopping point for
Hmm.
this episode. So thanks for sitting in with us this evening.
Yeah,
Um,
we appreciate y'all.
Yes, indeed. So be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to us here at Just Draws.
And
Um,
share.
and share. Yes, share, and share alike.
Hmm.
We'd love to have more comments on our videos and get in on this discussion. And I know y'all probably be like tired of us talking about friends and things like that, but it's very, very common and something that comes up a lot on social media. And I know, especially on Facebook, someone's always talking about, I don't have no friends. And it's so hard
Oh,
for me
you
to
and these
find and make
voices, boy.
friends.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a voice. So
It's
yeah,
gonna be
make
a
sure
voice.
make sure you jump in on this conversation, and we will talk to you later on.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Now be sure to like, share, and follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and Spotify at Just Draws. That's JUSTDRAWZ. Until next time,